This is the poet and the poem from the Library of Congress. We're on location with Sally Wen Mao, and she has a stunning new book, Kingdom of Surfaces. She's going to open up with a poem.
Great, thank you so much for having me. The first poem I'll read is called Minted. Anna May Wong is the first Asian American woman to appear on the US quarter dollar, and this happened in 2022. Minted. Oh, to be the face of money. 2022, newly minted, you are a new woman. The face of capital, the face of lucre. Preface, your nails tapping against, in God we trust. But he is heads, you are tails. Toss a coin for the chance of it being you or George Washington. It's always George, George and his bloodhounds, George, father of a republic, patriarch of this nation you died in. In life, so many people thought it was okay to discard you, and they did. That director, his lewd smile, how he put his hand behind your ear. You were 16, 17. That was how you were assessed. A girl doll, forever foreign, stupid flower, spoiled with one touch. How we've grown used to being used once, expendable. You, me, pretty commodities, fungible, fungo, funny, fun, fun. But for whom? No glory to girlhood or Hollywood, no glory to money or matrimony, nation or state, treasure, treasury, treachery. Tell us, fathers, have we come very far? Your father was a laundryman. Every day of his life, he encountered stains. A century later, I dragged my linens to the laundromat, trade dollars for coins with your face on them. Each new quarter dreams another cycle inside this machine of cleanness. But none of my dresses are in mint condition. Some stains I cherished, some stains I wanted gone. For this coin, I watched my stains tumble, obedient to the laws of disappearance.
The voice of Sally Wen Mao, so witty, so sharp. Give everyone a notice about who Anna May Wong was.
Yes, so Anna May Wong was a prominent Hollywood actress from the golden age of Hollywood in the 1920s and 30s, and she was pretty much the only Chinese American actress, and to this day, it's only changing slightly today. Anna May Wong was the most decorated Hollywood actress who also happened to be Asian American. A lot of my poems from my last book, Oculus, focused on Anna May Wong, and I had a series of persona poems written from her perspective in Oculus. And so when this news came out that she was going to be on the US quarter, a lot of people, sent me that news information. Like so many people were like, look, it's Anna May Wong. And I think I had mixed feelings about it, right? I had a mixed reaction to it because, she's no longer alive and she can't really know about this, right? She was pretty much exploited for most of her life, right? So I ended up writing this new poem kind of in response to that.
But Sally, you have made her more well known than she was in her own time. And so that service is not to be overlooked. Also, I do think she knows about it, actually. That's what I think. I do think she knows about it. That vibration is very strong. But
Right.
now we get one of the themes of your book. And so what are some of the other things you touch on?
So I think a lot about commodification in this book. So my last book, you know, I thought a lot about spectacle and what that means to be a spectacle. And then I actually think it translates well to this new direction that I took with this book, The Kingdom of Surfaces.
It
So
sounds
I
that way. The New York Times loved it. And that is, I'm going right away to get it after I leave this microphone, because it does, I can see exactly how it threads into your present thinking. But so the themes are the history of racism against Chinese women in America. But that is not only the content. What got me by both ears is the multidimensionality of your imagination, the spectacles. You are infinite in your ideas. But tell me if you just want to give the audience another theme, or have I said it in such a big way?
Well, yes, I think, like I mentioned, like a theme is commodification, but specifically along the lines of, like you mentioned, the history of Chinese women and how their relationship to commodification is one that is very unique and very layered, and also very disturbing. So like a lot of this history I had to pursue on my
Mm,
own because it wasn't really taught to me in school.
nor us.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, I don't even know if you're aware of the contribution this book is. I mean, this book is telling history in its very brilliant, spectacular way, but the origins of silk and porcelain, the pain, the blood in those products. This is a book that is going to really make history, Sally. So let us have another poem. I will just tell them that you are the author of two other collections, Mad Honey Symposium and Oculus. You were a finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize, a former fellow at the New York Public Library Coleman Center. You, I think, were from the Bay Area
Oh
originally,
yeah.
and you live in New York. But we'll
Yes.
get to know more. So let's have another poem. This is a book that knocked me off my chair.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate that. Okay, so this poem is called The Queen's Room. And it is actually one of the poems that reference the history I was just now mentioning. The epigraph says, San Francisco auction block where the first immigrant Chinese women were sold as sex slaves. Note the tasteful draperies over the windows, the view of the canneries. Salt air gagged, we arrived west, sunburnt necks, teenagers, most of us, like tanagers. Over the sea, we were red-winged, ready. The men who made us come here feigned betrothal, had us on our backs and talked of gold. Now so many pretty girls, lewd and unaccompanied. Debarking the ship, we were led to the barracoons. The bidders waited. Why call it a queen's room? 150 jewels clothed in lice and rags up for the highest bidder. Our mouths cash cows for our husbands. Forced to sign contracts we could not read. We did not know the words, did not know merchant or earthquake or gold, did not know debt or price or penny or worth.
Sally, was it really called the Queen's Room?
Yes, this was a detail that stuck with me when I was reading about the first Chinese women who arrived in San Francisco. Yeah, so as soon as they got off the ship, they were led to this auction block, which they called the Queen's Room.
That sums it all up, doesn't it? That
Yes,
says everything we need to know. And the tanagers, red-winged, how you get that image. Please continue with another poem.
great. So this poem is called Obad with Gravel and Gold, which has a similar thread as the Queen's Room. I'm sick of speaking for women who've died. Their stories and their disappearances bludgeon me in my sleep. Their language is the skein in my throat that unravels every time a bullhorn blows, every time a road is paved, every time a railroad is constructed, blast to blast, built to last against the orange flames of an open, unwritten sky. The bad ballad of a silenced, hell-bent woman bled its way into my jaws, and I wake up this morning, every morning, eating my disquiet, crack my window open, their breath rushes in. Me, this body, the same weight of disappearance, same weight of fortune. Last night, a woman from another century entered me, and her male phantoms possessed me. All night I was warm, cold, and savage with their touch. Heatless factories shorn of silk, muslin, and selvage, machineries like guns. No salve for the women's cracked hands, no salvaging their rations, their ambitions for survival. There was the child of a famine. There was a girl sold for 3 gilded ounces at the old San Francisco port. They sailed, they sailed, they sailed through me, and I turned gold with that touch.
They sailed through you. They certainly did. They sailed through you. What does it take to write a poem like that? What does it take out of you? Or what does it give you?
It's yeah, I mean it's kind of it's difficult material to work with, right? Because I think as I write these poems, I'm also kind of reckoning with this information that I'm learning, as an adult. Um, and it just, I think it takes something out of me, but it also allows me to funnel, the horror of learning this history into something else, right? So I think that's what a lot of poetry does.
But Sally, does it ever occur to you that this isn't in the history books, what you're really doing for us? This isn't in the history books. You
Yeah.
had to you had to parse out all this research yourself because they were all just fragments and ideas. But
Mhm.
you're not this is not going to get taught in the schools
Mhm.
right now. So this book is really has many, many levels, and I think you are maybe even you don't even know the outcome of them. But I'd like you to comment on the comment you made that beauty is political.
Mhm. Yeah, well, the 2 poems I just read refer to those women that I mentioned earlier, right? Like those women who were brought over from China in the mid, like 19th century. And pretty much all of them were sold into brothels against their will, right? And that's kind of what I mean by beauty is political, right? Like there's a way that, that becomes commodified. Beauty also gets commodified, and beauty also, often has dire consequences, right? Like something that you cannot really help, like how you look like, but in that world, like that was the only, like it either led these girls and women to their doom or it led them somewhere else.
And today, not all that different. So
Yeah.
it's so transactional. I just never heard those words put together exactly that way because it is in the air. We all smell it, we all feel it, but I never heard that put codified, really. Beauty is political. So Sally, Wen Mao, we want more. This is the poet and the poem from the Library of Congress. We're on location.
Oh, yes, and one of the other like valences of what I mentioned, beauty is political, is not just like not just the experiences of humans, but the experience of objects, right? So like the ways in which like a certain aesthetic gets fetishized. And another huge part of this book is kind of contending with the ways in which Europe um like reacted to Chinese objects and Chinese art. Like, so these beautiful things that represent something that's like coveted, something that's, you know, that people want to put in their households, like that doesn't necessarily translate to the people that are associated with those objects, right? So one of the things I wanted to do with this book is really kind of like examine that paradox, right? Like to examine the paradox of, you know, having such a huge like market for Chinese objects, like Oriental objects or Oriental like imitations, and like having such a huge like demand across Europe and America. I think they called it China mania. And
Or
also the aesthetic movement was very much based on this like obsession. But at the same time in the 19th century, you know, you have the Opium Wars where so many people died in that war. And then you also have the Chinese exclusion laws that were implemented in the US, and a lot of and during that influx of immigrants, immigration in the 19th century, that was some of the most violent times in history for Chinese immigrants, right? Yeah.
yes, there was blood on everyone's hands, and yet those hands wanted to get that beautiful bowl with
Mhm.
the beautiful blue design. And I think you talked about chinoisiere,
Mhm.
and say it correctly, chinoisiere.
Yeah, Kinazari.
Yes, and
I
that
don't know if
was,
I pronounced it right.
but that interested me very much, because not only do we have the exploitation and the looting and the appropriating of artifacts, but then the imitation of the
Mhm.
Chinese styles on wallpaper and
Mhm.
all things Chinese. Isn't it? It doesn't it blow your mind even today, even though you are the author, that something can be revered at the
Mhm.
same time they are defiling the origins.
Yes.
And that's why your book is, I think, going to be telling the story. So
Thank you.
more poetry from Sally Wen Mao.
Great. I guess I'll read an excerpt of the poem on Mahalika that really kind of directly
Yes.
discusses this.
Mm-hmm.
The aesthetic movement began in the 1860s as a return to natural beauty, inspired by Asian arts and wares. But inspiration is the wrong word for a forced opening. How the US military forced Japan to open its borders, how Britain force-fed opium to China, so the pretty wares of aestheticism could enchant regular British households, plum branches, sprigs of holly and ivy, fans and lacquer ware, British imitations of Chinese-style jardinières, with paw feet of wilted chrysanthemum vases and psychedelic dragon teapots, their lopsided claws catching, spilling blue and white waves.
Exactly. And the title of that poem, would you describe what that material is?
Yeah, so I was actually commissioned by uh, the Bard Graduate Center for an exhibition that they had about Mahalika, this specific kind of like lacquerware that emerged in you know around that time, like 19th century Europe. And and what really interested me was like you know Europe beginning its own kind of like pottery um like tradition, but drawing so much from aestheticism and also like Chinese aesthetics. So So when they invited me to the gallery to look, I went around and I found a lot of these pieces that were directly influenced by blue and white porcelain coming from like China.
Did porcelain begin in China?
Yes, so porcelain, so a long time ago, like the Chinese figured out how to, make this really high quality porcelain made out of kaolin, which is like this like special material. And it has to be heated really hot in order to achieve that effect. And I think Europeans were trying to imitate that for a long time, for centuries maybe, like, and they weren't able to, like, you know find the secret to making porcelain for a long time, that it was super coveted.
So why not loot it?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
after all, if you can't make it, you can borrow it.
Yeah.
Sally Wen Mao. You went to Cornell for your master's, MFA?
Yeah, so I did go to Cornell
How
for
was that? How was that master's program for poetry?
I mean, it is a really great program. You get to work with some excellent professors, mentors, and other students. It's really small. There's only about four people per genre every year. I think it provides a lot of great support for its writers.
Did your first book come out of that?
Yeah, so my first book, I wrote the majority of that book in my time at Cornell, but also before. So like my first book, which came out in 2014, I think of it as like I think of it as the book I wrote when my brain hadn't fully developed yet. Like, because I think, your brain supposedly finishes developing at
It
25.
might be the best book. You never know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
people will
So,
judge you in the
but it's
future.
but yeah, I mean, I still stand by that book. So I mean, I think that my time at Cornell definitely contributed
What did
to.
you think about Carnegie Mellon? Were you an English major at Carnegie Mellon?
Yeah, so Carnegie Mellon actually had a creative writing program, and I chose it because it's one of the few universities that did have a creative writing major as opposed to minor.
Yeah, that is
Um,
unusual.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I was able to work in multiple genres and work with some great mentors. I think at the time, my professor and my advisor was Terrence Hayes, and he
I
definitely,
love him a lot.
yeah, he definitely had a huge influence on me as a poet. I call him my poetry dad because
Mhm.
the first poetry class I took when I was 18 in college was with him. So
I didn't realize he was there then, but what poem won the Pushcart Prize?
Um, okay, so the most recent poem that was
How many
included,
have you won?
oh, just two.
Oh, well, we can just, well, which is the last one then?
Yeah, so the most recent one, it's called Playing Dead, and it is in the Kingdom of Surfaces. It was first published in the Kenyon Review,
Hmm.
and I can read it.
Maybe we should. It's in this book.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it.
Playing Dead. The first time I was touched, parts of me were seen. The nautilus, the teeth, the cavern of mouth, how a question marks the spine and then it is never answered. How his seeing became my seeing. And he surprised me. His finger slipped into a barren burrows, a bare contusion. I thought I was exposed, but unbeknownst to me, most parts remained unseen. And I was to retain this unseen feeling for most of my life. I've spent apart, not a part of any tribe or religion or posse. Most of my life, I identified with animals like the possum, searching for trash or playing dead. After this thing was done to me, I believed I played a part in it. like how an actress finds a part so she could slip finally into another skin. My parts, these parts. I wrote the whole thing off. My feelings were leaves that bypassed everyone and buried me. In autumn, my seams parted, and all I did was write a poem, an ode to roadkill. And a decade passed before I knew I didn't give permission. The only thing I could control was my reaction. Wide-eyed, limp, maybe a gasp, maybe a sigh. When the possum plays dead, it enters a shock stage. It plays such a convincing part that people have discovered possums this way and buried them alive. Comatose, its glands produce rotting scents, green mucus shrouding its body to repel predators. The laws of predation know a carcass can't be harmed the same way a living thing can. Even a predator is afraid of a dead body in the dark. And then the possum lies still on an empty road, under stars or pine trees she'll never see, until eventually a car comes speeding down the highway and kills her, this time for real.
As a discrete poem, many women will identify with that. But then when you put it in this book, it works very well with all the other poems. So let us go further into the book with another poem.
Great. Let's see. I'll read this high bun since you
Yes,
mentioned.
I do like that very much. I teach that form, and it's always a mystery what the essence of it will turn out to be at the end, the haiku.
Yes. So this poem is called High Bun, Spring. Spring turns to summer, hopes fly high, a golden romance. In my bloody fists, I smell sweet osmanthus flowers. In my hope for honey, I drink wolfberry tea, which my mother recommends for ruddy health. Under the pulped sun, lovers grow young and younger. Everyone kisses inside empty school buses. Everyone says goodbye. Cheekbones that bruise outside, incandescent inside. I can't stop sobbing in bed alone or with another. Riding bikes next to the lake, hold my hands under the bridge. The first time it touches me, the pink blossom revolts me. Winter stripped the willow bark bare. We pray the leaves will grow back. I can't read the names carved on the tree. Who are they? Did they survive? Under the sun, lovers are revolting. Hunger strike. All food tastes like poison. Nurses in uniforms bring us IVs. We are all fainting. Is it starvation? Is it rage? Tear gas with its peppery odor touches the petals falling across my thighs, my knee-high socks, my school uniform, my nosebleed. The chants grow louder and louder. The squadrons whistle, batons, holsters, handcuffs, and then martial law. The screams, the spring, the safety line. Don't forget to drink water, my mother tells me. Don't forget your wolfberry tea. She begs me not to go, but I go. My hands are up, lungs full of fish. I drop my phone into the lake.
Such a last line. People should know that the haibun is a prose form, and most of the lines are in the present state. Do you have anything else you can teach us about the haibun?
Well, the haibun was first introduced to me by the poet Amy Nezuko who loves haibun. And I like including a haibun in my book. I don't exclusively write them, but I had one in my first book, Mad Honey Symposium, and I, wanted to just return to the form here in this book. Um, and this poem, there's a lot of doubleness in this poem, and I was interested in that. The high bun, I think, has a lot of potential to bring like doubleness and paradox into the form, because
Mm.
it's both a prose poem and includes the haiku at the end. So there's like a form and a structure to it, but there's also like this freedom to it, which I think mirrors my experience writing this poem, which it's like high bun spring, which references the season, but it also references like spring, like rebellion, like a protest, like revolution. So like there's the word revolting, right, which is like, it's also like the feeling of being revolted by something, but also like revolt as in like rebelling. um
Oh, that's really interesting to me that the Haibun you think allows that doubleness more than maybe another form. That's
yeah.
very interesting to me. And yeah, you do it. You have a lot of going on there that maybe the long line allows.
Yes.
Well, we are just so proud to premiere you, and we would love a closing poem.
Great, thank you so much. I'll close with the actual last poem of the book. Great. It's called On Garbage. Every day on the back of our '89 Mitsubishi Galant, I searched the curbs for precious garbage. It was the '90s, my parents were scraping by, and I learned to sharpen this vigilance, pay attention to what everyone throws away. Our first 3 TVs, our first couch, our first coffee table, its glass crackled, its oak rough, how I learned to love garbage because it gave me hope to rescue what was abandoned, what was beyond repair. 8 years old, I was home alone too much. No story had to end in the dumpster. I prized even the broken things, the TV sets with bent antennas, the moth-eaten lace, the paperbacks dropped in bathwater. Then I learned shame. What if I had known then what I know now, that landfills, like churches and streets, have names? The largest landfills in America have pleasant ones. Pine Tree Acres, Sunshine Canyon, and some have terrible names, like Fresh Kills on Staten Island. Once a salt flat, then a tidal strait, a dump, then finally a park. The trash mounds capped in clean soil, like snow dressing the loneliness of summits. All the drawings I wish I'd kept, the toys I thought I'd outgrown, the aches of girlhood. I was wrong to think I could let it all go. My mother's father was a hoarder, so she loved tearing things up, throwing them out. She made a carnival of it. Every day, the crinkling and crushing, the tossing. Of course, she'd raise a daughter who excels at dumpster diving. Among the treasures I rifled out of the trash, I found myself.
The voice of Sally Wen Mao. And the program is The Poet and the Poem from the Library of Congress. The series is produced by Forest Woods Media Production, post-production by Mike Turpin, MET Studios. We wish to thank the Library of Congress for making the program possible. Funding is provided by the Sinipid Fund, by the Rivada Foundation of the Logan family, by Natalie Canavore and Sandy Jackson Cohen. Mike Turpin is our engineer, and I'm Grace Cavalieri.